We put a lot of trust in medicine to fix things. But what happens when the fix is actually the problem? When the very thing that's supposed to heal you ends up being the biggest danger of all?
And I'm not just talking hypothetically. This is a real-life, high-stakes question that doctors sometimes face, where the standard playbook just gets thrown right out the window. Today, we're going to look at two incredible cases where this exact nightmare scenario happened.
So let's dive into our first case. It all starts with a pretty common diagnosis and a totally standard treatment. That is, until it takes a very sudden and very terrifying turn.
Okay, so picture this. We have a 36-year-old woman, and she's diagnosed with Graves' disease. It's a form of hyperthyroidism, which basically means her thyroid is in complete overdrive. So her doctors do exactly what you'd expect. They start her on a common drug called carbimazole, which is a type of thiamide. The goal is super straightforward. Just calm that overactive thyroid down.
But just 1 month later, everything goes sideways. She's rushed to the hospital with a high fever and a bad sore throat. All the classic signs of a serious infection. But it has nothing to do with her thyroid. Something else has gone horribly, horribly wrong.
And her blood tests tell the story. Just look at her absolute neutrophil count. It's 0.01. The normal range is supposed to start at 1.4. Her number is basically 0. This is a condition called agranulocytosis, a complete and catastrophic collapse of her immune system. And the cause? It was the carbimazole, the very medication she was taking to get better.
So there it is. The cure had become the poison. And here's the real problem. Since carbimazole is a thiamide, doctors can't just switch to another drug in the same family because of a huge risk of cross-hypersensitivity. So now they're completely stuck. They have a patient with a runaway thyroid, and their main weapon to fight it has just been taken off the board.
Now, you might be thinking that sounds like a crazy 1 in a million situation, but let's check out our second case, which ends up in a similar crisis, but gets there through a totally different and what seems like a totally harmless path.
All right, so our second patient is a 52-year-old woman. She's got a pre-existing goiter, and her thyroid's a little overactive, but it's under control. She goes in for a routine CT scan of her neck. To get a clear image, these scans often use a special contrast dye, in this case, an iodine-based dye. Pretty standard stuff.
Well, for her thyroid, that iodine dye was like throwing gasoline on a fire. It triggered something called the Jod-Basedow phenomenon, where that huge dose of iodine just supercharged her already active thyroid and sent it into complete hyperdrive. We're talking a full-blown thyroid storm.
So her doctors throw the kitchen sink at her. High-dose standard therapies. But this timeline tells a grim story. Just look at her thyroid hormone levels, her FT4. On day 12, it's already high. By day 22, it's even higher, and by day 30, it's at this critically dangerous level of 47.10. For 3 solid weeks, they're using every conventional tool they have, and she's only getting worse. So let's just take a breath here. We have 2 patients, both in the middle of a serious medical emergency. For one, the go-to drug literally destroyed her immune system. For the other, her body is completely resisting all the standard treatments. They've run out of options. So, what in the world do they do now?
Well, this is where the story takes a fascinating turn, because the solution came from a completely unexpected place. It was hiding in plain sight the whole time. The answer was a drug called cholestyramine.
That's cholestyramine. Now here is the twist. Cholestyramine isn't a thyroid drug, not even close. Its main FDA-approved job is to lower high cholesterol. But in these desperate situations, doctors used it off-label as an emergency measure to fight this life-threatening thyrotoxicosis. So the big question is, how on earth does a cholesterol drug fix a thyroid crisis? Well, the secret lies in a really clever bit of biology and a way to hijack one of the body's own natural recycling systems. It all comes down to something called the enterohepatic circulation. Now, that sounds complicated, but just think of it as a hormone recycling loop. Your liver sends thyroid hormones into your intestines to be disposed of. But then, your intestines actually reabsorb some of that hormone right back into your blood. In a thyroid storm, that recycling loop gets stuck in overdrive, just constantly pouring excess hormone back into the body. And this is where cholestyramine pulls off its magic trick. The drug itself doesn't get absorbed. It just passes through the intestine, and as it does, it acts like a sponge.
It physically binds to all that extra thyroid hormone floating around in there. Since the hormone is now trapped, it can't get reabsorbed back into the blood. The recycling loop is officially broken, and that trapped hormone gets safely escorted right out of the body.
So, did it actually work? Oh, you better believe it. Remember our second patient whose levels just kept climbing no matter what? Well, after doctors added cholestyramine, her FT4 level plummeted. It went from that critical high of 47 down to 30 in just 5 days, and it kept on falling. The treatment was working, and it was working fast.
I mean, let's just put a number on it. Her levels dropped by over 30% in just 5 days. After 3 weeks of getting nowhere with the standard drugs, this old cholesterol medication came in and basically stopped the crisis in less than a week. It's just incredible.
So, what's the big lesson here? What's the major takeaway from these two amazing medical rescue stories?
It's set in two completely different life or death situations. One caused by a drug reaction, the other by a routine scan. The answer turned out to be the same. A well-known, everyday cholesterol drug, used in a creative, off-label way, worked when absolutely everything else had failed. It gave both of these patients the bridge they needed to get to recovery.
And that really leaves you with a pretty fascinating thought, doesn't it? It just makes you wonder, what other unlikely heroes are sitting on our pharmacy shelves right now, just waiting for a resourceful doctor to find a new life-saving purpose for them?